benefit services. Today I'm very happy to be joined by Darren Eady, CEO of Secure Private Funding. Darren, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll get started. Just a little housekeeping before we get going. All attendees are in mute, so please ask your questions using the question box or the chat box, and we'll be able to get to those by the end of the program. We should have plenty of time. I am recording this webinar for those of you that might have to leave early or want to show this to others. So please let us know, again, any questions, and we are recording, so let us know if you want to copy this recording later. So I'll get started while people are still signing in. Today we're going to be talking about buying trust deeds in your retirement plan. Little housekeeping features. We get started. AccuPlan, we're not financial advisors or broker-dealers. We're third-party administrators, so everything here is for educational purposes only. We can't endorse any products due to our status there. A little bit about us. AccuPlan, we're self-directed IRA administrators. We have our own trust company called American Estate and Trust, which is what allows us to be an IRA custodian. Me, myself, I have been in this space for 6 years. Previous to that, I was in life and health insurance for a year or two, and prior to that, I was doing mortgage loans. And before that, I was in college at UC Santa Barbara up the coast. I come from a family that's been into real estate for a long time. They're big into land. They're rice farmers up in Northern California. But here, I'm going to help talk about investing in alternative investments with your IRA dollars. So for those of you that might not know too much about self-directed IRAs, you're not alone, though the information about this is growing out there. So a lot of attorneys and accountants, they probably know a little bit about it, but not everything. It helps me to bring me in if you're working with your attorney or your accountant on a transaction. Same with your financial planner. They're most likely working for a financial institution like a bank or brokerage company that doesn't hold alternative investments. And they generally won't hold things like real estate or trust deeds in their IRA. So that's where you have to come to a custodian like us. A little bit of background on IRAs before I move to this slide. In 1974, Congress passed the ERISA Act, which outlined today's system of IRAs that we know today. The 401ks came along a little bit later. But it basically said you had to have an IRA custodian to hold your investments. And the rules were very broad. You could own just about anything in your IRA as long as your custodian did so. But as I mentioned before, most custodians are those brokerage houses and banks and insurance companies which hold publicly traded assets like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and annuities in regards to the insurance companies. But there's a whole other world of trust companies like ours that will let you hold things like real estate, notes, and investments in private companies. So I just updated this slide from usual. There was over, right now, the latest numbers out there on IRA holdings, and there's $7.2 trillion in IRA assets. To give you some frame of reference, at the end of 2010, there was about $4.7 trillion. So the IRAs have grown substantially since 2010. Now, the majority of those funds are with those traditional IRA custodians and publicly traded assets like stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But as I said, this space is growing. There was about 2% of IRA assets back in 2010 that were in alternative investments, and right now that number is getting closer and closer to 5%. So it's a growing field. People are learning on how to diversify their IRA and be able to invest in things like real estate and notes. I keep mentioning real estate and notes because those are my two top asset classes that I'm seeing when I'm administering these IRA accounts. Besides those real estate and those notes, whether they're secured or just unsecured promissory notes, people are investing a lot into private companies and even precious metals. Now, I'm not seeing that precious metals client so often, mostly seeing the real estate folks and the private companies, but there's different parts of the population that are really big in investing in precious metals, and that's something else that we'll hold as an IRA custodian. So as you can see by this list here, you can invest in trust deeds, LLCs, oil and gas, water rights. This list could go on and on and on. When the IRS wrote the ERISA Act, it never listed what you could invest in, just what you couldn't invest in. And they really only listed two things: life insurance contracts and what the IRS deems as a collectible. And this is a list of some of the things that the IRS lists as a collectible: a work of art, rug or antique collections, different metals or gems, stamps and coins, alcoholic beverages, and anything illegal. And you'll see here they even made some exceptions for some specific coins like U.S. government minted gold or silver eagle, gold and palladium bullion. So there's even some exceptions to these collectibles here. It's not that easy, however. There isn't just those two things. A lot of people, you'll also hear that IRAs can't invest in S-Corps. That's an S-Corp rule. S-Corps only allow naturalized persons to be investors in them. However, I do see people lend money to S-Corps. So sometimes people say there's three things. But besides those, two investments that your IRA is not allowed to invest in, there's something called prohibited transactions. And I'll try to leave out the jargon as much as possible, but essentially there are what's called disqualified persons your IRA can't invest in or invest with. So when your IRA invests with these people, that transaction is considered prohibited. So who are these disqualified persons from your IRA? You are. You're a fiduciary, or considered a fiduciary of your own IRA, so you can't have any personal benefit from your IRA's investment, or neither can your spouse. And then you want to think about this in a straight line up and down. Your parents, your grandparents, your kids, their spouses, grandkids and their spouses, they can't have any personal benefit here. So it's kind of, think along the lines of, got to keep the transaction at arm's length. And besides yourself, any corporation partnership in which you are some type of owner there as well. So let's go through an example of some of this stuff here. Because if you are found to be in a prohibited transaction, the IRS will disqualify your IRA. And they can go back and disqualify your IRA as of January 1st of the year that prohibited transaction took place. So for instance, if you bought a house in your IRA back in 2010 and you paid your son some money to paint the house, even if you paid him the going market rate, he's a disqualified person from your IRA. So the IRS could go in, disqualify your IRA back as of 2010 and put you in a taxable event back in 2010. And any penalties that have gone on between then and now, you would be responsible for paying. So that could be a huge taxable event. So that's why you really want to understand these prohibited transaction rules. So we'll try to play a little game here. Now this works a little bit better live in person than over webinar, but I think you'll get the point. If everybody remembers the game Deal or No Deal from NBC from a few years back, this is how we play. Can your IRA lend yourself $10,000? Deal or no deal? That one's no deal. That's the definition of self-dealing. You can't lend yourself money. You're getting a personal benefit from that. What about your brother? Can your IRA lend your brother $10,000? Deal or no deal? This one is deal. Your brother's not necessarily a disqualified person because he's on that pendulum of side to side, not straight up and down. Now, if you're just trying to skirt the rules, you lend your brother $10,000 and then he goes invest that $10,000 in your company, the IRS sees that, they'll say you're just indirectly subverting that rule and they'll still disqualify your IRA. But if you're going to lend your brother $10,000 and he's going to go off and do some third-party deal with that money and then repay your IRA, that's fine. Now, what about your stepson? Can your IRA lend your stepson $10,000? Again, this one, your stepson doesn't fall in that straight line up and down, so this one is a deal as well. You can lend your stepson this money. Now, you might not want to, but I'm just trying to help you figure out what the IRS rules here are in regards to who you can and can't work with your IRA dollars. Now, what about your daughter-in-law? Can you lend her money? That one is no deal. Your children and their spouses. So again, this can be a bit confusing. If you have questions on that, that's what I'm here for, to help guide you through those processes. So now let's get to the more fun parts. All right, how do I put money in a self-directed IRA? So self-directed is really just a marketing term that our industry uses to say that we allow you to invest in everything allowable under IRS guidelines. So our IRAs are like everybody else's. We have traditional IRAs, we have Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, and simple IRAs. So if you have funds in another IRA, we do what's called a trustee-to-trustee transfer that transfer those assets, generally cash, from that custodian over to us. There's no tax consequences for making such a move. Then if you have a plan, retirement funds in an employer plan like a 401k or 403b, you're going to want to request a direct rollover to roll over those funds directly to the IRA with us. There's no tax consequence for doing so as long as they make the check payable to your IRA with us and not to you directly. And I've never seen a plan mess this up yet. So generally they know to do a direct rollover because people will be rather upset if they just did an indirect rollover to them. And then the third and final way is to make an annual contribution. Now I still have these 2014 numbers up, and I will until April 15th generally, because most likely you have until April 15th to make your contribution for 2014. So for most people that are W-2 wage earners, you fall in line of having a traditional or a Roth IRA. You're limited to $5,500 a year. If you're over the age of 50, there's an extra catch-up contribution of $1,000 that you can put in there. Then there's the SEP IRA. A SEP IRA is a great plan for the self-employed and possibly their employees. This allows a self-employed person to make a profit-sharing contribution to their plan of up to 25% of their adjusted gross income. The cap for 2014 was $52,000. That's gone up for 2015, but again, we're still kind of focused on 2014. Then we have the simple, or you'll see it called a simple 401k. It's an IRA and not a 401k, but it works very similar as the IRA rules do. It's for small businesses, and I rarely see this plan, but sometimes you do, where people can make contributions out of their pay. For 2014, it was $12,000 a year, and then the companies generally match a couple to 3% on that. And there's a catch-up contribution for the simple plan as well. And then I'm going to get into this in a minute. There's a great plan for the self-employed individuals with no full-time W-2 employees. You hear it called a one-participant 401k plan, a solo K, an individual K. And for 2014, the contribution limits were up to $52,000 when you add in the employee contributions and the company matches. If you're over 50, there is a catch-up contribution as well. And I'll get into a little bit more of the solo 401k in a minute for those of you that might fall into that category. So again, the self-directed 401k, we call ours the 1K. So how this works, the plan is what's a self-administered and self-trusteed plan. What that means is if you're that self-employed individual, you are the administrator of this plan, and you are the trustee of this plan. So the trustee meaning you're the one that has all signature authority here. You're essentially a custodian of your own plan. So what we do is we help you set up this plan with our plan document and let you go invest from there. So you can invest directly into an investment from your 401k plan, or some investors create like a business trust or LLC to be an intermediary before getting into investments. And I see this a lot. I have a lot of clients that invest in non-performing notes. It's not what we're talking about today, but generally they're a bank and they're having to go in and work with a borrower, and they don't necessarily want it known that it's their 401k plan. So a lot of them are putting that into a business trust for anonymity reasons, and then holding those notes from there. So how it works, doesn't matter if you're an LLC or C Corp or S Corp or just a sole proprietor. We create the 401k plan. You can roll over any other pre-tax IRA dollars and any other qualified retirement funds if they're in other 401ks, and then you're ready to go make investments from there. and I help walk you through that whole process. So you can buy real estate. You can actually loan yourself money from this plan up to $50,000, and then you pay back your own retirement plan. The plan also has a Roth option where you can make Roth deferrals to the plan, and any pre-tax dollars in the plan you can actually convert to Roth as well. So again, the 401k plan is a great plan for the self-employed that have no full-time W-2 employees. For the rest of us, or the rest of you that want to have checkbook control of your retirement plan, there are options to do what's called a checkbook IRA. We can help you create an entity that the IRA owns so that you can direct the IRA custodian to move the funds to that entity and then do the investment yourself. Now I want to back up a little bit, back to those prohibited transaction rules, and talk about there's a court case called the Swanson case that was back in the late 90s. This guy Swanson came in, created a couple corporations, had his IRA dollars fund them, and he was the head of that corporation and was unpaid. The IRS came in and said, well, that looks like a prohibited transaction, and they went, and the IRS actually lost the case. They said because he wasn't receiving any income, that he could help forward those funds as head of that company. So that came about the checkbook IRA. So a lot of places are using an LLC model for this. The problem for those of us in California is the franchise tax board fees here, $800 a year plus a gross receipts tax. So what the business trust has come along and kind of filled a great void for the checkbook IRA owners, especially here in California. So similar to an LLC, it's taxed as a partnership. So if it's a single member, it's what's called a disregarded or pass-through entity. So there's no federal return that has to be filed if it's just one member, so it's just your IRA. If you have two members, if it's an LLC or business trust, it has to file a 1065 federally. But there will be no tax issued, but it just has to file the return. If it's on a state basis, if there's two members, the LLC, I believe, is a 568 it has to file, and the business trust is a 565. So even though the business trust has to file a state return if there's two members, it still doesn't have to pay the $800 a year or gross receipts tax. I have more information on that on my website dedicated to that. If you check out retirementcheckbook.com or IRAwithcheckbookcontrol.com. The IRA process is fairly simple. We can get your account open in a matter of minutes. You can go online and do so. The longest part of the transaction, honestly, folks, is moving the money from your existing IRA custodian over to us, whether we're doing that transfer method or rollover method or just making your annual contribution. And then on funding the investment, we can do that. It takes us about 2 to 3 business days on average to do so. And then you have that asset in your account. And you'll have 24/7 access to your account online, and you can be able to go from there. So again, you're not limited to holding just those publicly traded assets. You can move to a custodian like ours and hold these assets that you want to invest in, like real estate and trust deeds, which Darren's going to talk about here, and I'm very excited. I've just gotten to know Darren in the last month or so through Charlie Castro, who I've done many webinars with. But again, here's my contact information here, Brian Davis. You can check me out at AccuPlanSanDiego.com or RetirementCheckbook.com. And then, Darren, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for hosting this webinar. I think this is excellent information for your clients, and I'm grateful for all those who have joined us to listen in about performing trust deeds, and something I'm passionate about and something I'm invested in. So let me just first of all pull up my screen here and get my presentation going.
All right, we can see it.
Does that look good, Brian? Can you see that? Perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely can.
Perfect. I'll spend just a few minutes going over my background. I was born in Ontario, Canada, for any Canadians that may be listening, and moved out to Southern California, where I think most of you may be from that are listening today. I went to Laguna Beach High School and grew up in Dana Point, San Clemente, and Laguna Beach. I moved up to Utah, where I currently live, went to Brigham Young University for Graduated in psychology and business. Found those two majors are both helpful. And met my wife Sarah there. We live up in Utah. We enjoy a lot of the outdoor activities that are here. We love Lake Powell for any of those who are boaters as well. After settling here, my first, we did door-to-door sales. And if any of you have done door-to-door sales, I would suggest don't bring your wife with you. She didn't enjoy it too much. I was the top guy, so I enjoyed it. But we did that for, and then was VP. I was VP of a company that's now called Vivint International. And at that time, it used to be Apex, and we sold Terminix Pest Control door-to-door back with them, and now they do alarm systems and other things. For about 20 years or so, I've been in the lending and private investing industries. I had a company called Good Neighbor Mortgage for many years, and built my dream home here with earnings from that company, and worked by referral only with that group for years and years. And then in 2010, with some of the changes that had already happened in the market, I had a friend approach me about starting a private lending company, solely private lending, which we did for the last 4.5 years, and lent over $210 million, I think, at this point, in small loans to investors. And the reason I mention that is I had the idea at the time to fill a niche in the market, which was small loans on properties that didn't cost a lot around the country that thousands of investors were buying. Great time to buy those properties, and so I wanted to lend to them. So we created a loan program for that group of individuals, and at the same time, and I thought of all this in the shower one day, and I decided to open up the not only the lending to these groups and put all the safeties in place of an asset-based loan, but also be able to sell those mortgages to other individuals who just wanted a great return on their money, which basically allowed us to loan money to one person and then sell that mortgage to another, have them get the return we were getting, and do that again and again and again. So that's what I'll spend a little more time on today as we go through just a few slides. Let me also just go through this quick disclaimer. Secure Private Funding, LLC, its principals, members, the officers, attorneys, managers, operating managers, and directors are neither registered investment advisors, mortgage brokers, real estate brokers, broker-dealers, securities dealers, nor financial advisors with any state federal agencies within the United States or any other country. You understand and agree that no information contained in this correspondence constitutes legal, accounting, or tax advice of any kind, and you should contact an attorney or accountant before using any of the information described in this correspondence for your business, company, or transaction you are involved in or contemplating. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Now that we got that out of the way, let me also tell you, this is a quote on my own website, but I just thought I'd read it. Investing in trust deeds has been my absolute favorite moneymaker for years and years. While many people are buying properties, I greatly prefer holding the high-paying, low-risk mortgages created for those investors on those properties. I receive auto deposits constantly on the performing trust deeds I hold and never have to worry about a water heater blowing up or a furnace being stolen because I am acting as the bank, not the landlord. My goal today, if you're currently interested in purchasing trust deeds or mortgage notes or think you may be interested in a short period of time, or have friends or family or other associates that may be interested in creating a significant monthly return with their investment dollars, my goal today is to collect your information through email or through my website and add your name to my list of investors. With this information, I hope to create a lifelong investment relationship with you and be able to provide important real estate information, available trust deeds, properties, tax information from our servicing company, and pass along any discounts or other offers from vendors in the industry from time to time. And my email is shown here and will also be shown again at the end of the webinar. So after this webinar, if you could just please send a quick email to me with your contact information and how much you possibly have available for this type of investing so I can match the best investments for your needs and stay in touch with you with any urgent info. Just took a little quick drink of water. So let me just jump over to my actual website. This is the front page of the website I wanted to take you to, so we'll just go to it here instead. On the website, you can watch kind of a cool little cartoon video, and now the website is set up primarily for borrowers And if you have the need for funds, you can find out about the lending program. And that may be whether it's within your IRA or just your personal needs if you're buying properties to hold. So this video will talk more about the benefits of borrowing, but I want to go over just a little bit about borrowing so you understand the terms of the mortgage notes that you're purchasing, because of course the mortgage notes come from the loan that was underwritten. So all of these tabs take you down the page that I just scrolled through, and you can do that on your own. Contact info to get in touch with me. And a funding request is for someone who's looking for funds for a deal that they're working on. They would fill this out, this funding request. What I want to spend a few minutes on, or the rest of the, I guess, my time here, is just on the trust deeds tab. So I'm going to click on that. And here you can see available trust deeds, and then we'll talk about the loans that created these trust deeds. But this just gives you an example of a property, how much the trust deed is the sales price of the trust deed. It also shows value of the property, the amount that you will earn per month if you own that trust deed, and also annually. And you can tell it's about 20 times better than the bank right now, so that's why a lot of people buy these trust deeds as fast as we create them. You can scroll through. There's different trust deeds and different properties in different areas. The address, of course, is on them, and the return is 12%, which is the amount that I charge on the loans, and it's assigned to you. You can also click on a couple tabs here, and I'm going to jump back to the presentation to look at those tabs because I have those all out anyway. So let me just continue on here. You looked at the available trust deeds on the site, and you can look at those anytime, and those will change as they are sold. Due diligence. So let me just spend a minute on the loans themselves. I think it's important to understand how the loan was put together so that you understand if it will perform. And we have a fantastic performance on our loans, and you'll probably see why. In fact, the first sentence of this due diligence page that I inserted in there says a real estate note or a trust deed is simply the document that has been recorded against a property showing the terms of repayment. Some states use deeds of trust, some states use mortgages, trust deeds, or mortgage notes. Really, it's the same thing. It's just the recorded instrument, which is the loan against that property and recorded in first position on the title of the property. And then I put, when buying a note, it is important to understand the terms of the loan and the underwriting requirements used to evaluate the property and the borrower so you can be sure your investment will perform. So here's some of the due diligence things. I'll just skip through these, and we can answer questions about anything that you see here or hear that you'd like to know more about. Loan to value, I lend between 50 and 66% on the loans that are, again, become the trust deeds. That's it. It's a low-risk loan. Bank statements are collected to ensure that the borrower has their own down payment. Properties are all non-owner occupied. No one lives in these properties that I lend on. And they're either rented or they're rent-ready, cash flowing investment properties. So if it needs fix-up, then this isn't the right loan for that particular client. They would go to someone that has a fix-and-flip type loan. All loans are written to an LLC or a self-directed IRA. Now, notice here that you can borrow through an LLC or your self-directed IRA. So another aspect of this webinar might be that you might need funds to join your funds from your IRA and buy a property. So I also do that. And the loan is then set up to your IRA instead of to you personally. And so your IRA makes the payment and collects the rent and so forth on that home. All loan payments are set up through a servicing company. We use the Note Servicing Center in Chowchilla, California. I don't know where Chowchilla is, but I'm sure it's somewhere in California. And they've serviced thousands of accounts for me in the past few years. They collect from borrowers, and then they pay the note holders. All monthly payments are set up through an ACH payment withdrawal from borrowers so that we don't have to wait for checks to show up. They all automatically withdrawn. It even has a credit card backup in case the ACH doesn't pull that time. All loan payments include taxes and hazard insurance, which is really important. An escrow account is set up for the borrowers so that we make sure that taxes are being paid and that hazard insurance is always on the property. Again, this is all on the loan side. A lender's policy of title insurance, of course, is collected on every loan, ensuring clear title. Also that we're in first position on the title of the property. So every loan is in first position, and we don't allow second position loans. On properties with a current tenant, a lease agreement is collected. Monthly rent is determined through a lease agreement or comparative market rent analysis. And we use different methods of valuing the property. It could be a BPO, a CMA, an AVM, or a full appraisal, depending on the property in the area. And each time a funding request is received from the website, then I, of course, collect all the information that's shown below. You're welcome to review that at a later time. So that's how a loan is put together. We go through a due diligence process. We put a lot of safeties in place to protect ourselves, including safeties to get the property if the borrower stops paying, which I'll answer probably a few more questions in a minute. This flow chart just simply shows the flow of money. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is my company, Secure Private Funding. I'm going to join the borrower and typically do 50%. They'll do 50% and buy a property. They make their monthly payments at a 12% interest rate to the note servicing center, who's collecting from the borrower. Initially, when I lend the money, I'm the investor, and so the note servicing center will be paying me 12% until I sell that trust deed to someone else, and I give away the 12%. Instead of me earning it, now you earn it, or whoever buys that trust deed. And they buy it at a par rate, or buy it for what I lent, essentially. And then if they buy a $33,000 trust deed, they receive $330 per month. I negotiated with the note servicing center no fees for note holders, and that's a first. We typically, there's servicing charges, but as a note holder, there are no servicing charges for my clients, which is awesome. You receive that $330 a month I just mentioned until the borrower finds cheaper financing or pays off the loan, and then they repay their $33,000 that you bought the note for, which means you get your investment back plus all the interest that you've earned. Okay, and then some benefits of holding trust deeds, and I'll run through these individually. We may have talked about a couple of them. You replace me, Secure Private Funding, as the lender, and you receive the 12% annual passive income return. All due diligence, research, and evaluation has already been completed. We've already pulled title, collected a title insurance policy on the property, collected information from the borrower, pictures of the property, valued the property. All of that stuff's been done, so your investment here is very different than a non-performing note. Your investment here is simple, straightforward. You simply take over the assignment of the performing note and collect the returns instead of me. So much more like buying an annuity or a glorified bank account, I guess, than having to do any work. This is for passive investors. And just on the subject while I'm here, too, I've noticed that really there's really two groups of investors. One is very active. They're buying properties or they're buying non-performing notes, and they want to essentially end up with a property or appreciation. They're also willing to take some of the headaches that go with those different deals. Again, we talked about toilets and tenants and trouble, and if you're that kind of an investor, then you're probably going to be purchasing property or non-performing notes. With performing notes, it's a very passive investor like myself, because I own a lot of my own performing notes. I enjoy just being notified that I'm getting a payment, and it shows up in my bank account from our servicing center. That's all you really do. You buy it, and then you get paid on it. And then you get paid off, and let me know at that point if you want another note, which most people do. Next benefit of holding trust deeds, you earn the 1% monthly or 12% annually, annual return. You take over the commercial loan agreement by assignment, and then it becomes your first mortgage lien instead of mine. You don't take title to the property, I guess I should mention too. You're just taking title to the first lien position or the loan, the mortgage that's against that property. Fourth benefit, our servicing company collects through ACH withdrawal. They also deposit through ACH deposit. Now with your self-directed IRAs, they're going to send a check to your custodian instead. It doesn't really matter because you wouldn't see it then. It just go right into your retirement account and not into your bank. But they send checks instead of direct deposit with self-directed IRAs. You don't have to hold it through your self-directed IRA if you have cash that you want to make a cash return monthly. Then, of course, you can invest any way that you prefer. Because there's no liability with holding trust deeds like there is property, you don't have to hold the asset in an entity. There's no porch that can break, or there's no liabilities that come to you with holding a trust deed. Let's see, and then We just went over those. So 6, if the borrower stops making payments, secure private funding has put safeguards into the loan paperwork to give either of us the property quickly, including any equity. So there's going to be, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I guess everyone always has the question, what's the worst case scenario? What happens if the borrower stops making payments? Let's cover that in just a second here. I think one of these we'll cover it anyway. The loan term is 3 years. So these loans are fairly short term, long enough for people to go find other financing at a bank. Their ultimate scenario is to actually go to a bank eventually and get a 30-year loan on their rental property instead of a private money loan that's shorter term. So they can pay off at any time. If there's no prepayment penalty for them, you just receive interest till the day that they pay off their loan. Available trust deeds range typically from $20,000 to $100,000. Most trust deeds are around the $40,000 mark. Again, it's typically 50 to 66% of the value of the property, and most of the homes that we're talking about that people are purchasing in this current market are around the $70,000, $60,000 to $80,000 range. When you click on the Buy Now button of a trust deed on my site, it'll take you to just some trust deed purchase instructions and some payment instructions. So you can wire or you can send a check. But basically what's going to happen is you're going to let me know that you'd like one of the trust deeds. I'll send you back the documentation for it. You sign your portion, I sign my portion, and then we send out, once you've received the signed portion, then you send payment in for it, and then we have it assigned at the note servicing center, and it becomes your trust deed instead of mine. Now I've got a few questions and answers, and you probably have more too. I'm going to run through mine in just the time that we have left, and then if I answer the question you had, we won't cover it again. If I don't answer it though, type it in. We'll go over it in just a minute. So we talked about what a note or trust deed is. I'm just going to skip a few of these. Again, it's the secured instrument against the as a lien against the property. That's what a trust deed or a mortgage note is. These loans come from me. They come from secure private funding. It's money that I've sent out. They are not brokered from another source. So the trust deeds you'd be buying would only be coming from my company and the loans that I've created and done my own due diligence on. You can purchase as many trust deeds at a time in your portfolio. Again, there's no liability to trust deeds, so you can hold as many as you'd like, or that your self-directed IRA allows you to, or that your cash allows you to. What's the typical range? We talked about between 30 and 50,000. I think on my website right now there's between 23,000. One of the current active available notes in 49.5, which was a commercial property and appraised a little bit higher. The annual rate is 12%, but you receive 1% per month, so the payment does show up monthly. It's an interest-only payment for them, so you receive the interest only yourself each month until you're repaid. The loan term is set for 3 years. If the borrower pays off sooner, then it could be a shorter period. These are all first position trust deeds, which means that there's the only thing on title will be this mortgage. Payments are made monthly. There again, you may incur a wire fee if you wire to send in funds to purchase a note as opposed to a check. It does make things faster. You start receiving interest faster. If it's coming from your self-directed IRA, then I'm actually not sure. Brian probably could tell us at the end if a wire goes out or a check goes out. But other than that, we've taken care of the servicing fees again. So where the last company was a $10 per note per month fee, I've negotiated that off for my clients. Yes, you can purchase notes through your self-directed IRA or 401k, of course. It's a fantastic way. I would say that the happiest clients that I had were self-directed IRA and 401k note buyers because, again, very passive income, and a lot of times your IRA or 401k is set up for passive use. How do I get interest each month? Again, payment is sent through our servicing company directly to your custodian or to you personally if you own it as a cash investment. Interest payments are simple interest only. When the payoff occurs, you receive the principal back on your investment. Also, I'm notified when your trustee gets paid off. That way I can call you and say, hey, I saw that your trustee was just repaid. Would you like me to find another one at around the same price? Okay, let's cover this question for just a minute, and I think we're pretty much wrapping up my portion. If a default occurs, an intensive collection campaign by both our servicing company and us as the lender will ensue. If a borrower cannot catch up their payments and remain delinquent after 90 days, the property will be taken by power of attorney appointment, signed at closing, and we will approach you with a few options to sell us the note back, start foreclosure, if you'd like to start foreclosure, and some people do. Most people don't, but some do, or other options. So we've built safeguards into our loan program that if they don't make their payments, that we actually can deed the property to us and protect ourselves. There's even other safeguards in place. That also ensures your safety as a note holder, that you won't end up holding a note that's not going to pay and you can't go and get the equity or your money back or something. So there's some options if a trustee didn't pay. We have a very high payment rate, mostly because of the skin in the game from borrowers putting down a significant amount of money. They typically don't want to lose that. In fact, I've even had some call in the past where the renter's not paying, but they're still saying, how do I get my payment in? How do I get my payment made so I don't lose my investment? When can I expect the first payment after I purchase a trust deed? Within 15 to 45 days, the first payment arrives, and it's a prorated amount the first month because the borrower's due date and the date you bought it won't be a full month necessarily. So the first month will be a partial payment, and then after that, each month the full payment. And usually the servicing center sends the check out within 10 days after the due date of the borrower, as soon as they've paid their payment. See what other ways that people use to purchase trust deeds. Client have purchased trust deeds from their home equity line of credit on their home. A lot of people have very cheap home equity lines of credit at 3 or 4%, and now you can make 12% on your money. Business lines of credit, IRA, 401k accounts. Obviously, those are self-directed. Trust funds, custodial funds for minors, and other means people have used to purchase trust deeds. We can't take a credit card presently to buy a trust deed. And can you sell these to others? Right now it's expressly written that, well, it's written in our agreement that these are not for resale. If you'd like us to work with your friends or family, that is possible, though, if they contact us and ask about purchasing trust deeds. You don't need an LLC or an entity to buy a trust deed. Again, not a liability, it's an asset, so you don't have to have protection necessarily with that. You can if you'd like. And the properties all around the different states in the country. I think currently there's maybe 3 states are available in current trust deeds. Some people ask this question, you know, if you get the monthly interest and I'm assigning the note to you, how do I get paid? I just realize that when I put a loan together, I charge an origination fee, so the borrower has paid me to put the loan together, and then what I'm giving up is the return, the monthly return, past the fees. So I've collected the fee, you now take over the return, we both win out, and the borrower gets you know, the properties that they wanted to, or multiple properties when they could have only bought maybe one with their own cash. Okay, I think that is it for the slides. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction, that's why. 1 second here. And
that was good stuff. Now, you asked a question of me a minute ago. I took my phone off of mute, and then I forgot the question that you were all. Maybe Brian knows the answer to that. Was it about wire fees?
In fact, I've got one. Well, it's just about if the self-directed IRA can send a wire to purchase a trust deed, or do they send a check?
They can do either. Yeah, it's up to the client. There's a small charge for a wire, $15 on our end, but most definitely we can wire funds or send a check. It's up to them.
Okay, and that's inexpensive. Perfect,
yeah.
And that's pretty inexpensive charge anyway. I know most banks charge $30, so that's great. I had one more question, I think, on here. Oh, maybe a couple more. So let me just go with a couple more things, and then if there's any questions from anyone listening, I can answer those. Can you foreclose if the borrower defaults? I guess the answer is yes, if you'd like to. If you don't, if you wouldn't like to, the borrower doesn't make their payments, then again, there's some other options. I can either buy the note from you, find a different, swap your money to a different performing note available, and work with the borrower. Again, the safeties in place on the loans protect me either way. So it's more of what you'd like to do. And what tax implications? Nice thing with 401ks, IRAs is there's no 1099 statement. If you buy it as a cash purchase or another means, then you'll get a 1099 for interest income from our servicing center. So that is the end of my questions that I had to run through, and hopefully I answered a lot of the questions that people might have had. And if we have more time, or if you have some questions there, Brian, let me know.
Yeah, we do have some questions here, and some of these were written earlier, so maybe you answered them for them, but I'll ask them anyway. It doesn't hurt.
Okay.
How can I be, I think you answered this at the beginning of your presentation, how can I be notified when trust deeds are available?
Well, again, if you just go to the contact information and let me know who you are, I will send you information when the trust deeds get swapped out. When there's another group of them, you might want to buy them, have the first kind of look at them. So I'll let you know. I'll just send a blast out, and whoever's first to buy them buys them. So just by, I guess, putting your contact information, getting it over to me, then I can let you know when they become available.
What states are you primarily loaning in right now?
There's probably 15 main states, so it's a little bit tough, I guess, to answer that. But I'll just name a few, I guess: Texas, Ohio, Kansas, Missouri, Michigan, Alabama, Florida, I think I might have said, not too many in New York now, Illinois. So there are a bunch of different states, and it's mostly on the eastern side of the map.
Okay. Here's another question I have. Just
a little further on that, Brian.
Yeah.
I guess too, it's more of wherever the rent versus cost ratio on a home is low, or I should say is the best ratio as possible, is the highest ratio of the rent received versus the cost of the home. That's where companies are buying and selling homes, and that's where people are buying those homes. So that's where there's people trying to get into multiple homes using private money to do so.
So I'm assuming, and this is just me talking here, that some of your loan amounts are much smaller being in those states as opposed to California.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, exactly. We do some loans in California, and those will probably be the higher dollar amount ones as far as the trust deeds go. Often very low loan to value, but sometimes people want private funds quickly, and so we both lend on purchases and refinances. So sometimes there's an investment property in California. I'm thinking of one that was worth $400,000, and they just needed $100,000. So we did a little bit higher loan than normal to accommodate them.
Okay. Do you sell any non-performing notes?
I don't personally sell non-performing notes. Again, my take on this, I love passive investing personally. If you are like me and you like that, then you'll love these trust deeds. If you're looking for an active investment like non-performing notes or property, then you'll probably gravitate more towards those investments.
Okay. Let me see. So it sounds like you answered this question there. Do you prefer performing or non-performing notes? I think that one's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, what do you prefer?
Oh, I prefer performing notes for sure.
Yeah.
I don't like to make it difficult on myself. There's enough due diligence that goes into my loan process to create those performing notes that I've done the work needed. I would rather not do it again and have to try to go put together a foreclosure and so forth if I don't have to. So yeah. I prefer performing notes.
Okay. And we got two questions here that are kind of similar. One is, what kind of documentation will I receive regarding the note and the borrower? And then what kind of, do we get information about the property? Like, is there a video walkthrough or anything like that?
So let me answer the second one first, and then I can kind of go over the first question. There's no video walkthrough of the property, and just to be clear, you're not buying a property, you're buying the mortgage on the property. And so, a lot of people want to focus, I guess, on where's the property and so forth. Really, what you want to look at here is how is the loan created that's going to perform and give me the monthly return that I'm looking for, instead of looking at the property and the location like you would if you were buying the property. Right. So with that in mind, when you purchase a trust deed or a note from me, then I can send you the documentation we used without personal information for the client, the borrower, but I can send the information more on the property and so forth. Of course, I can send that to you after I've assigned the note, because until that point it's all private, I guess, because it's their borrower information. But after you've taken ownership of that with an assignment, then it's your right to have a copy. So you just let me know what you want. Sometimes people don't want anything more than the pictures that they need. Other people want to see the loan agreements and so forth. And other people have asked for the whole due diligence package, everything I put together they want to see. So any of that's available to you after you purchase that note.
Okay. Here's another one I got here. Are the notes amortized over just 3 years, or what is the normal amortization schedule you use?
So these are actually 3-year balloon notes, or mortgages, I should say. So the client is making simple interest payments. So just real easy math on this. In fact, if the mortgage or the note is set at $25,000, their payment is $250 per month of interest. Now they also are going to pay taxes and insurance and a servicing fee from the borrower side when they make their payment. But on the interest side, there's no amortization. It's just simple interest. So it's $250 a month, and then that's exactly what you get when you purchase when you get the 12% return. You get the $250 a month in interest.
Got it. Another question I'm seeing here. How many points are you charging on average on these loans?
I charge 10 points, which is, of course, fairly high, I guess, in the industry. I put that on the back end of the loan, so they typically are, or they're paying me when they're paying me off. So if they're borrowing $30,000, for instance, I create the payoff of the loan at $33,000. They make their payments based on $33,000, and at the end of the term, they pay back the $33,000.
So you still have skin in the game even after you sell the note.
Yeah, it's a little bit unusual over other, I guess, notes, to anyone selling a note, because I do stay involved. I have skin in the game, and I stay involved in the process. And that's why also, you know, worst case scenario is they don't make their payments. I'm still here. I'm still involved. I'm asking them to make their payments. And if they won't do it, then I'm the one that usually will step in and offer the repurchase of the note and then take back the property. Just a further note, too, people refer these borrowers to me a lot of the time. I have an agreement with those people that if I end up with a property back and they were the one that sold the property, they'll buy it back from me at what's owed, too, which means I've got kind of double protection for me as the lender, that when I send my money out the door, I know that either I'll end up with the property if they don't make payments, or I'll end up with the company that referred them buying back the property if I did get the property. So a lot of safeties in place. Again, I've perfected this loan process on an asset-based loan over the last 4.5 years. I guess longer than that, because I've been doing private lending a lot longer than just these companies. So anyway, hopefully that answered the question. And thank you, by the way, for all the great questions you guys.
Yeah, we got one more here. So if anybody out there has any last-minute questions, get it in, because this is the last one I have listed here. What percentage of your borrowers default? Right now, it's only 6%, which really, on a private or hard money lending basis, is really low. And I think the important thing to note there, it's 6 to 7%, I guess, currently. But the important thing to note there is that it's because typically, one, they have significant skin in the game with their down payment. A lot of places will lend a higher loan to value. I keep mine relatively low so that they don't want to lose their investment. And the other one is that the power of attorney that's written into each loan, you know, if they don't make their payments for a while, they're going to lose that property. And so they make sure that they make their payments a lot of times, even if they're not getting the rents like they expected. Or, you know, it's real estate. Things go wrong in real estate all the time. But the important thing is to have the protections on the loans in place to protect you and me, either as the note holder or as the lender. Right. All right. Well, Darren, I want to thank you so much. Thank everybody for taking the time out of their day. I'm hoping that Darren will come back and do this on a regular basis with us. He does have a unique offering, and if these trustees are out of state, and some smaller amounts for a lot of people to get into. So I really like hearing about what's going on outside of California. And Darren still does have roots, though, here in California. So anyway, Darren, I want to thank you so much. Thank you. And again, it's been great to be able to talk about this. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And again, thanks everybody else. We are recording this, so I should hopefully have a recording up that will be on YouTube later in the day. And feel free to contact Darren or myself if you have any questions. And again, thanks everybody.